I just really wanted to discuss it more than try to land on one piece of it and just discuss one piece.
What is the song?
It's Devarim 32.
Oh,
It's the 32nd chapter of Deuteronomy. And we read in Revelation, the 144,000 in Revelation 14:3, they sang a new song before the throne, before the four creatures and the elders. And no one was able to learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. This song is pointing to Devarim 32. It's a song that Moses sang to the children of Israel before they crossed over the Jordan. But it was also a song that gave them a lot of insight as to the fact that they were going to fall away and that they were going to be separated from Elohim because they're falling away. But it also talks about the fact that they were going to be redeemed. And as we go through this song, we're going to find is that it actually ping-pongs back and forth within itself. That the answers to a lot of the song itself are found within the song. But it also shoots us back to Bereshit, to understand things from that point of view, and it also shoots us over into Brit Hadashah as we go along. But we're going to try to take our time going through this to kind of see if we can soak things into our being. We're coming up on the first day of Sukkot, Sunday, and that technically next Monday is the last day of Sukkot. We're going to have a celebration Sunday. We're going to actually celebrate Simchat Torah on the 4th, where we'll be rolling back the Torah. Is kind of a...
The 4th is which day? Following Sunday?
Sunday. Which is a representation for us of being finally in Eden after the judgment, after everything's taken place, and we actually go back to the beginning where we should have been all along had there not been transgression. So, Devarim chapter 32 begins. It says, "Give ear, you heavens, and I will speak, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth." And when we think about that, when we look at the Hebrew in this, it's really, really interesting, because as he's addressing the heaven, he's saying Hashamim, but I'm sorry, yeah. He's talking about Hashamayim, but he's talking at Ve'ad-Devarim, or Ve'davara, which he's saying the word of Yahweh. Okay, basically what we see comes from Hashemayim. So he's addressing the heavens, but he's also addressing the earth, and the words that he's using to address the earth is basically it's Vetishemot, or Vetishema, which he's saying Shema belongs to the earth. The word of Elohim belongs to the heavens. The Shema belongs to the earth, in order for us to be able to perceive the word that comes from heaven. What does this remind us of in this story? The word of Elohim belongs from the heavens, that the earth is responsible for Shema. This takes us all the way back to the way things were in Eden prior to the transgression, that the word came from the heavens and was understood by the Adam. Okay? It takes us back to the beginning, that this is where our state of being should be. Then it goes on in verse 2, "My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender grass, and as the showers upon the herb." Now we keep in mind in this verse, keep in mind an idea of purity, okay? Keep in mind an idea of purity. The drop of rain comes, but it distills as the dew. When we think of dew, what do we think? We go outside and we see water on the grass. It's not really muddled with anything. We also think about manna that presented itself on the dew. It was like the dew in the mornings that they were able to collect. So it's a representation of the word, the pure word that finds itself on the grass itself. And then it also says, as the showers upon the herb. And we think about the herb, that again, water is falling on the herbs of the earth, but it's not getting muddled in the dirt. And that's something that we keep in mind in this verse, because we'll come back to this verse in just a second. Then it says, for I will proclaim the name of Yahweh, ascribe you greatness unto Eloheinu. Moses is saying, I will proclaim the name of Yahweh. And then he's telling the people that they too need to ascribe the greatness that goes to our Elohim. All right? Now, that's an interesting comment, because from verse 1 all the way to verse 43, from verse 1 to verse 43 in the Hebrew, there is not an aleph and a tav in the word et that stands alone in any of these verses. This is coming from the voice, or from the word of Moses is speaking this forth. Moses is singing this song. It's our responsibility to be able to learn this song so that we understand that Elohim is always present. Now, we go on, the rock. His work is perfect, for all his ways are justice. An El of faithfulness without iniquity, just and right is he. Now the rock is the Torah, which is the word of Yahweh. And if we say that the rock, the Torah, is perfect, and his ways are the ways of justice, then we understand that the word was Elohim, that the word, the Torah of Yahweh, is Elohim, in that it is a mighty judge that has the authority to bring redemption and rest, not necessarily the word being a heavenly being as Christianity wants to teach us, but the word being the Torah of Elohim that has the same authority that Elohim has, and that word was with Elohim in the beginning. So this is the rock that brings us our justice, brings us our redemption, and there is no iniquity in it because it is faithful.
So the Christianity today trying to make the word a being.
If you try to make the word a being, then you can make the
Like
word
a separate being?
Yeah, then you can make the word into the Son, and then you can make the Son part of a Trinity.
Instead of him.
Yeah, you can make Jesus is God, and you can say because the word was Elohim, without understanding that it was the Torah that had the authority that Elohim has, not as a person, but as something that Yahweh has always had with him. He's always had his ability to speak forward a word. But understanding that, and now we're going to go up and take a look at verse 2 again with this verse. It says in verse 5, is corruption his? No, his children's is the blemish, a generation crooked and perverse. Now we go back and look at this verse that says, my doctrine shall be as a drop of rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, small rain upon tender grass, and as the showers of the herb. Then we go back and consider in Bereshis. Let's see, I think I had it marked back here, but if not, we'll take a look at it, because we're going to see it again, but we're kind of jumping the gun. In Bereshis chapter 1, verse, let me see, chapter 1, verse 29 that says, Elohim is speaking to the Adam, "Behold, I have given you every herb yielding seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which there is fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for food." And it says, "And every beast of the earth, and every fowl of the air, and to everything that creeps upon the earth, wherein there is a living soul, every green herb for food." And it was so. And then we go on to Bereshit 2, where Elohim forms the Adam that he takes and he places in Eden. And then in verse 8 it says, "And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the Adam whom he had formed. And out of the ground made Yahweh Elohim to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." And it says that in verse 15 that Yahweh took the Adam and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And then Yahweh commanded the Adam, saying, "Of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it, for in the day that you eat of it you shall surely die." So what does that have to do with this verse in verse 5 in Devarim that says, "Is corruption his? Does corruption belong to Yahweh?" Then he says, no, his children is the blemish, or his children's corruption is the blemish, a generation crooked and perverse. He says, my doctrine, the doctrine of Yahweh Elohim that Moses is speaking forth, that comes from Hashemayim, that comes from the heavens, that is to be the Shema of humankind, what we saw in the first verse. This doctrine is to be like a drop of rain. It's supposed to be pure. It's supposed to be as the dew. It is supposed to be something that's edible, like the manna was edible. It's supposed to be the thing that is found on the tender grass. But what happened at the flood? At the flood, the rain fell down, this purity fell down, and humankind didn't grasp it. And what happened? The water hit the dirt. And because it hit the dirt, it became muddled. The corruption didn't belong to Elohim. He sent us the pure water. The corruption belongs to the children because it's the children that allowed it to get muddled to the point where it couldn't be understood. And because it couldn't be understood, they didn't enter into the ark to find their life. Just as because in the end, we have 144,000, what the word tells us, that will find their way in. But the people outside will not want to find their way in because they will not want to see past what their established beliefs allow them to see. Everybody with me? Okay. So what is it that the 144,000 are going to understand? They're going to understand this song. They're going to understand that we have to go back to the purity of the word. We cannot remain in something that's defiled. So, do you thus requite Yahweh, O foolish people, and unwise? Is not he your father who has begotten you? Has he not made you and established you? In other words, why were we created in the first place? Why do you go contrary to the word of Elohim? Why were we created in the first place? And if we go back to Bereshit, we read that there was no one to tend the shrubs of the earth. There was no one to till the ground. So Elohim created the Adam out of dirt, breathed into him his nostrils the breath of life, and placed him in a garden eastward in Eden so that he could take care of the things of Elohim and then bring that care, that ability to take care of the fruit within the garden, outside of the garden, to take care of the fruit of humankind as well, so that the entire earth would be fruitful and multiply according to the word of Elohim. That didn't happen because of transgression, right? So we go back into verse 7 that says, remember the days of old. We sit there and think about the days of old. Well, we have lots of days of old. What days of old specifically? We think about the relationship between the Adam and Yahweh Elohim in the garden prior to the transgression. This is something that we should always keep in mind and always remember. What was that relationship like prior to the transgression? Where we read after they've transgressed that they heard the voice of Yahweh Elohim walking in the garden in the breeze of the day, and Elohim asked, Adam, where are you? This was the relationship that they had, that they spoke together, face to face, one-on-one, in a sense. That they didn't need intermediates. And this is a relationship in the days of old that we're seeking to get back to. But right now, we have trouble doing that. And we have an intercessor in Yahshua that allows us, that opened the way for that to happen through Mashiach, which infills us or indwells within us and surrounds us, that allows us to hear the Ruach in our day-to-day activity in the world that we're in. So he made a means for us to be able to hear him today, but the goal is to go back to what it was in the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will declare unto you, your elders, and they will tell you. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the children of men, he set the borders of the peoples according to the number of the children of Israel. Now we say children of men. What does children of men mean? In order to get kind of an understanding of children of men, we kind of have to jump over to verse 21. It's going to kind of give us an idea of what the children of men are. In verse 21, Devarim says, they have roused me to jealousy with a non-deity. They have provoked me with their vanities, and I will rouse them to jealousy with a non-people. I will provoke them with a vile nation. Now, we've got all kinds of really interesting ideas that have come out. And the Messianic movement has used this to say, well, the Christians are going to start doing all the stuff that the Jews do, and they're going to make the Jews jealous, and the Jews are going to want to become Christians. And we have two groups of people that are being talked about here. Actually, we have three groups of people that are being talked about. But first of all, these people have roused me to jealousy with a non-deity. What does that mean? They have gone to something other than Yahweh Elohim, and they have set that something other than Yahweh Elohim on a pedestal. We have so many deities in Christianity today that we don't realize that we have, or they don't realize that they have, that they worship and they reverence. And just like Yahshua said, you worship what you don't understand. And that's the first thing. They have provoked me with their vanities. Vanities are the traditions and the false pagan celebrations that are held not only by Christians, but Jews, pound for pound, ounce for ounce, have more pagan celebrations than do the Christians. Because the Talmud is full of them. And Tachanot is full of ideas that say you have to do this. Torah outlines specifically what the feasts and festivals of Yahweh Elohim are, and these are the ones that we are to keep. So there's two different groups of people. It says, I will rouse them to jealousy with a non-people. So first of all, there's a non-people, something that we've never considered. And I will provoke them with a vile nation. So we say the Jewish people will never be made jealous by pagan Christian tradition. Their traditions have become just as tainted by pagan ideals. Their eyes will be opened only by those who faithfully keep Torah and who have come to know and understand Torah. They've come to understand Yahshua, and they've come to understand Mashiach.